Good evening. My name is Ashley Jones. I'm doing my presentation on social stories and how they affect communication and inappropriate behavior in students diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Social stories are simple stories put together as well as visual cues to help students diagnosed with autism to complete tasks that are necessary for them to complete, whether it be communication skills or a change in an inappropriate behavior that they need to correct. Social stories were created originally by a lady named Carol Gray. She was a teacher beginning in 1977 in Jenison, Michigan. And she was one of the first teachers in Jenison, Michigan to have students in her classroom diagnosed with autism. So she kind of became a knowledgeable in the realm of dealing with students with autism spectrum disorder. So she began using these social stories that she created for her students in her own classroom and started implementing them in 1990 with her students. As everyone knows, communication is key and vital in everyday life for humans. And when dealing with a student with autism, communication can be very difficult for them. Autism is such a wide spectrum disorder. It can range from they can be nonverbal or they can be very verbal. But even those students diagnosed with autism that are verbal still struggle with what we tend to call awkwardness. They don't really understand how to communicate appropriately and effectively. They don't have a personal bubble. They get too close to their peers or to teachers in order to interact with them. They don't make appropriate eye contact at times. And so these social stories help with that, with teaching them how to have those boundaries, how to keep that eye contact, how to speak up, things like that. Also, social stories can be developed and written in order to teach a child how to correct a behavior that is inappropriate or that is undesired. The desired behavior that we want to see out of them. So social stories are very simple to create. You simply write a story, one sentence at a time, short story, behavior you want to achieve, or what communication you want to work on with that student. An important thing to include with that is visual cues. We know that students with autism do better when they have visual cues. And so including those visual cues in with the social story helps with the fact that they are visual cues, but also students who are non-readers, that if you're working with a 5-year-old, he or she may have difficulty in reading the task that you want them to complete. Use allow them to visualize and see what action needs to take place. So one example that I like to give that has been very beneficial to a student that I work with on a daily basis is I created a social story for him. He is in 2nd grade, and he has attachment issues. And in the mornings, he would struggle with leaving his mom. She would walk him, she would have to walk him up to the school building. Well, not up to the school building, but we had a spot where I would go out and meet her. Basically have to drag him in every morning. Due to his autism, he has repetitive behaviors, and a couple of those behaviors are he liked to have and air kisses, where he blows kisses to his mother. And we wanted to put a stop to that because he would walk backwards and attempt to do those airwaves and those air kisses the entire way into the school building and all the way down to his classroom. A social story for him that mom would pull up and drop him off very close to the front doors of the school building. And he would give mom one kiss. He would give mom one hug. He would get his backpack. He would open his car door, walk in the school building, the front door of the building. And so we went over this with him a few days before we were off for a week break in the fall. We sent the story home. Mom practiced the story at home. Back after our fall break, we began this. Now, it was not an immediate. He did not get out of the car but at this point, a month, 2 months down the road, he is able to get out of the car on his own. He gives her one kiss, he gives her one hug, and he walks in the school building. And in the beginning, I had to be standing there with him, and now I don't even have to be there with him. He is able to walk to his classroom on his own. Successful for us. Social stories are kind of in their infancy, as they were only created back in 1990, which seems like a long time ago, but they're not as research-based as many other interventions when that are used when working with students with autism. Positive thing about the social stories is most of the research is showing that they do have a positive effect on students when trying to get them to communicate in an appropriate manner with their peers and teachers, and also changing a behavior that is inappropriate and achieving a desired behavior. It's not always worked, but it's also not shown any digression. It's not shown any extra behavior issues with students that have had social stories implemented with them. It just may not have shown that they progressed, but they did not regress. Also, another important thing to note is that research around the globe has begun using social stories. There was a research based in Iran, the first one of its kind in Iran, back in 2011, and also one in Taiwan. And that one was extended a little bit longer than some of these. It was several months that it took place. In our book, Autism Spectrum Disorders, our textbook for this course, the authors talked about the skill acquisition deficit. Authors say that this refers to the absence of a particular skill or behavior. And so students with autism typically have an absence of specific skills. They have absence of specific behaviors. And so students have these skill acquisition deficits. The textbook talked about using video modeling as well as social stories as skill acquisition models in order to teach students with autism how to those skill acquisition deficits. And an important thing that I found in several of the research project or research papers that I read was that they're starting to tie social stories and video modeling together. And so with the incorporation of technology and how it's being used, especially in the classrooms today, to incorporate both of those things together, they are creating these social stories on the computer with the student. And they are either having another student model how to correctly achieve the behavior, student that is trying to achieve a specific behavior, do the video modeling. And so they're tying both of those things together, which is very important in this day and age with the rise of technology. Study that I did look at was from Doyle and Arnadillo Sanchez in 2011. And these two looked at creating a computer-based program to help when writing social stories. It's not that you have to have a computer-based program. It's a very simple, very easy to create just with paper and pencil or typing it on a computer and printing it out. But they have actually created a computer-based program to help with creating these social stories, and that's been very successful. And that helps teachers who aren't comfortable with creating the social stories to put the stories together so that the students can achieve what they need to achieve. Also, Hutchins and Prelock in 2013 examined the use of social stories in home settings. A lot of times we hear about creating these in the educational settings, in the classroom setting, and how it will help the student in the classroom. Examining students in the home to see if these social stories would help in the home also. And they found positive results. They did help with changing certain behaviors in these students. And a very important aspect of social stories is to make sure that all the key stakeholders involved in the child's life are involved in the social stories. Just because it's a social story that is taking place at school doesn't mean that the parents don't need to be involved. Earlier, of the student that I have, of him having his attachment issues and coming into the school building, if his mother did not get involved and she did not practice with him and she did not talk to him and read this social story with him, then it probably is likely that he would not have achieved the results that we wanted to see him achieve. Probably would have taken much, much longer to achieve those results. And so it is very important for all key stakeholders to be involved. It's very important that, that your principal, your administration is involved. It's very important that the teachers are involved. Special education teacher is involved, and also the parents or the caretakers, the guardians of the child are all involved, and you're all communicating because the goal is to see that child achieve. And that's the purpose of these social stories, is to have that child at a younger age, how to communicate, how to act appropriately, and what we do in order to correct behavior. And therefore they can be good citizens and help our society when they become adults. Because if they become adults and they struggle with communication and they struggle with behavior, then they're going to struggle in adulthood. But if they can do this at a younger age by using these social stories, to be able to achieve and go far in adulthood. Thank you very much.